For someone to come and say, I'm going to timeline your healing, you don't get to, because neither do I. I can't, and I will never give anyone a structured timeline on when I'm going to be okay in their eyes, when I'm going to be normal in their eyes.
Welcome back, you guys, to the Daily Humans podcast. This is
Me first.
This is you.
Ashley.
And I'm Nina. Should I have just said my name first? I completely forgot how we do our intros at this point.
Actually, it's solidified into a permanent state of this is how we do it. Because at this point, the amount that we haven't actually done it a certain way,
Yeah.
YOLO.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I just want to touch on last week's episode with the beautiful special guest we had, Jordy. She was so amazing and so impactful. And I don't know if you guys felt it while you were listening to the podcast or watching it on YouTube, but she just brought with her this immense warmth and just groundedness that really changed my life. Not just changed my life, but honestly, it made me really introspective and look at myself. And Ashley and I have been talking about it a little bit, just kind of the after effects of everything. And it's just beautiful to see a human being that so fully embodies herself and stands by herself. And so I am just so eternally grateful for having had her on the podcast. And I'm looking forward to every single episode we get to do with her in the future. And even more so grateful to you, Ashley, because she, our lovely, lovely Ashley, suggested bringing Jordy on the show. So you were the very reason she came. And I'm just eternally grateful for that moment. Thank you.
Very grateful that, she accepted to be on our show. She was okay with it. I knew we had to have her.
Yes.
We just had to. Truly, she is a very gifted human being. She's a gift from the universe, as I like to use. That will be on our merch. Look out for it.
Yes.
I always say that to Nina. I'm like, Nina, you're such a gift from the universe. Geordie's another gift from the universe. So if you're watching this, Geordie, thank you for that episode. It was truly lovely, and I cannot wait for many more.
Yes, thank you so much, Jordy. You were a miracle and you are a gift from the universe, and that will definitely be on our merch because honestly, we need to start getting on designing stuff, Ashley. Like I've been thinking about it. It was like out of all the little quotes and things that we say, we need to start getting into actually making stuff and designing stuff because that would be so much fun. Ashley is so creative. Truly, she is so just, she's tapped into the energy, to the flow, to the frequency of art and being artistic and just you're beautiful, you're stunning. Every time before we start an episode, I'm like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. But it's true.
I know you're on a roll. Every time we jump on the screen, it's the first thing that she says. She's like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. She tells me every single time, get yourselves a Nina. Seriously, get yourselves a Nina. Write it down. What is a Nina? Write it down. And then in your friendships, look for a Nina.
Wow.
Look for a Nina.
Thank you.
That's going to be on the merch as well. Look for a Nina.
What would Nina do? Yeah.
What would Nina do? Yeah. And then we could have the list on the back. You know how concerts and festivals put their dates back, except for dates. We've got a friendship standard list.
Whoa, that is revolutionary. I'm glad we got that recorded because that needs to be a thing. Absolutely. Ashley thought of it first. Nobody steal it. I'm going to come for you if you do.
Universe will. Bam.
No, but prior to that, we got a little bit about talking in the experience of what it is to be human on this earth. As we always do, every single episode, we talk about different aspects of it. And today, we kind of wanted to share a little bit more, open up the topic a little bit more of what we've previously talked about when it comes to being in certain situations and environments that are not good. And then when you try to reach out for help, you get often blamed. So today we wanted to kind of talk about victim blaming. Not kind of, we wanted to talk about victim blaming and the journey of that.
Touch off. I think we said it in the episode where we were. What episode was it?
I
Episode
think it
10.
was 11 or 10, something like that. Yeah. 10, yeah.
It was one of them.
Mhm.
We were talking about um just the experiences with online behavior from men and even reality. And I think I said in the episode that we definitely are going to touch on the victim blaming aspect of being a survivor. People don't really like to use the word victim, and I kind of get it. But at the same time, in realism, if someone is projecting a certain behavior towards you, you are the victim of that behavior, but not in the way that people give the definition to. It's not like a weakness. It's just, you're not the perpetrator.
Yeah,
So you're on the other side of the spectrum. That's really what that's about. If we ever use that in this episode, we're not using it as a degrading term to those that have survived through some pretty heinous crap. It's just
yeah,
a term of you are the victim and the perpetrator is the perpetrator. It's just creating that definition, purely what it is. Just to touch on that.
absolutely. Yeah, I thought about it before as well. I was like, society always talks about don't be in the victim mode. And I have a love-hate relationship with that. In the past, I used to agree with it because I was like, yeah, you're never a victim. You're the conqueror. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. But at the end of the day, like you said, Ash, there might be situations in life where you might experience things and be on the victim spectrum of it. However, I think the whole terminology of don't be in victim mode, don't think lowly of what you've been through, kind of conquer through it, chin up, man it up, man it out, toughen up, like you can conquer anything. It comes across
Oh
a
man, no,
bit, yeah. Rub some dirt on it. Like it comes across toxic positive,
absolutely.
dismissive, not wanting to acknowledge what could lead for a person to even be in a situation like that in the first place. You know what I mean? And there is nothing wrong. I want to say this up front before we get into stuff. There is nothing wrong with having been a victim in your life. We have all been victims of something one way or another. Or maybe many of us, maybe not all, but many of us have encountered things, places, situations, people where we were like, why did this happen to us? And then when you seek out help or when you seek to talk about it to kind of get your mind maybe into a safer space or just to try and figure it out, we oftentimes get met with the, well, maybe you didn't really get what they were trying to say. I'm sure they were not doing what you say they were doing, like, oh no, they're a nice person. They would never do that. No, you must have misunderstood or remembered it wrong. And it's like you invalidate that person's experience. And to then have society on the other end be like, don't be a victim, don't be in victim mode or mentality. It's you have the right to feel the way you feel. Ashley and I say this all the time. You have the absolute right to feel the way that you feel and to have the experience that you experience. And I think at the end of the day, if you're constantly met with responses like that, it makes you question yourself and your emotions and the way you think and if you are perceiving the world correctly. And so there's nothing wrong with being a victim. There's nothing wrong with having been through difficult things. And I think we as a society owe victims of crime, of injustice, of just a lot of different things, a lot more than a pat on the back and be like, here's a couple therapy sessions, or you're going to be fine. It's just going to take some time. We owe people in society a lot more than that. So yeah, that was just like a little rant I had to go on.
There was nothing wrong with what you said. It made perfect sense, honestly. It really did. I would like to touch on something that I was thinking about when I was hearing you talk as well. Um, I don't think about how to say this. I've noticed something online. Of course, it's always online, even in person in some sense, but mostly online,
Yeah.
where I think people are taking what they've experienced in their lives, and I really do feel like we need to touch on this, and they're warping it in a certain way that meets this standard that they have of manipulation and I'm not narcissistic traits in a way, but just using it for an agenda or for self. And I know this is so far off the topic in some sense. It may seem like it, but it's actually not, because I do think that people can use sort of the state of victim as a way to really funnel through life, projecting and having a stance of, because I've been through this, I get to treat other people a certain way.
Mhm.
I've always kind of been I always have been, not kind of, I have been always on the advocacy side of those that have been through things, because Nina and I have. But I'm also noticing just this other side to it too that has to be seen and it has to be validated, if you understand what I'm talking about. I think in one way, if I may say this as a survivor, our trauma is very our trauma. The trauma that occurred is very valid in terms of what comes up through that experience and what you're going through. But it's who you are afterwards and during it that matters a lot. Who you choose to be through it and what you choose to do through it, because the harm cycle continues when we keep harming each other because we've been harmed.
Mhm.
And I hope I'm rowing the boat here, because
Yeah,
sometimes I
definitely.
feel like it's like I'm trying to find the right way to go about this topic. Am I? Because there's no script in front of us, so we're just kind of like navigating through the course of our brain. I should say this too, a little advocacy there. Because there's a few things happening currently in my own life, I'm trying to navigate through what to say while also I have like a voice just beaming itself in my brain right now. So I'm trying to like focus on what I'm saying while also I just have this voice just say something else and remind
Mhm.
me of something else. I'm sure all of you can relate when you're talking to someone and all of a sudden the voice will be like the critic or whatever will say something. Oh
Mhm.
my God. Just to put that out there, for both of us, we'll have our moments where we're just trying to think. But if we've experienced a lot on our ends, then who knows how it's going to come out,
Yeah.
you know. But let me change the but. My point is to really advocate for as many sides as possible that definitely need to be spoken about. And I mean, this topic is for the stigmatization of those that have been through certain things in their lives, but it's also about how behaviors are reciprocated after that. And it's about how people are putting themselves out there in the world. It has to be acknowledged as well as comforted for those that have been through it. It's kind of like it's so difficult to navigate through. But yeah. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a ripple effect, depending on how you're met after going through something difficult or watching somebody else go through something difficult and not knowing how to relate or how to kind of move through it, or having been on the receiving end of something terrible happening. And maybe you did get the support, but later on it turned into something else, or maybe you didn't, and there's just something that sprung from that moment. It's a ripple effect, and that's why I think it is so important to talk more about these things, because I don't know, I see a lot of people when it comes to online discussions. I see a lot of people just speak broadly about situations like these. You have like a creator here that says something problematic and you call them out, but it's never really about the root cause. And like you said, you can have people. The thing that keeps coming to mind, right, with what you said, Ashley, was it's so blaring in my head, and that's why I have to mention it. There was a creator that you mentioned in a previous episode, and I saw the video myself online on TikTok, where she had created a makeup brand or something like that, and then somebody that she had known also created one, and she was crying on camera talking about just all the thoughts that were coming up. And then people
Oh,
were
skincare brand.
supporting her. Yeah, people were
Mm,
supporting her and being like, hey, it's okay. But then there were people who created their own narrative and were like, oh, she's just seeking attention, or, and that came to mind
yeah.
immediately. And I think when you go through something dramatic, something that can alter your entire life, and has put you in a life or death situation or just a very survival mode situation, to be met with something like that. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what that must feel like and the ripple effect it has on that person and everybody they meet throughout their life going forward.
Yeah. So many branches there are, Nina,
Yeah,
as you know, and to everyone out there, there's so many branches to this. And we've said it before that our conversations aren't just segregated to one point and one point only. It's the points that we know of, are aware of, but yet even those points we'll figure out other points to it eventually. There's so much to this conversation in terms of you have the people that project and they project, okay, just came to my brain. The people that projected on her when she came out in a very vulnerable state and spoke openly how she's feeling, the people that project potentially have faced mistrust from other people. And I say potentially because obviously I don't know, but that's what I think about is potentially they've faced mistrust. So then they think, oh, you're doing this for attention. You're doing this because you want, you know, money. You're doing this because you want money and you want to be seen and acknowledged, and you're just doing this for the marketing of your brand. Like they create their own analogy from what they've been through, what they've experienced from people. And that's the thing. I don't know. They may not. But that's what I think about is that the projectors do it for a reason.
yeah,
And the people on the other side cop it and then they may potentially do it. And there's just so many branches. There's so many branches. But this is also why I said what I said. It's the awareness of our own behavior from the things that we've been through, as difficult as it is. I think many people can say that they would never want that to happen to someone else, or they would never want to project on anyone else how they were made to feel.
absolutely.
And then there's the other side where some people do want people to experience what they've been through because they've never been seen, heard, and validated in what they've gone through. They've never been able to talk to anyone about it. They've never been able to share it. They've never been hugged, and
Mm,
told that they're safe, that it's okay, Again, so many branches right then and there. There's just so many stories that online when we jump at the first narrative, it just invalidates all the other realities that you're potentially not even seeing or that you can't see unless that person actually tells you about it. That's why I don't judge. You just can't. It doesn't make sense to. You can
yeah,
judge an environment to see if it's safe or not. Yeah, definitely. You can suss it out and you can have those moments, of course. I have, definitely. But it's going online, seeing someone's behavior and then immediately jumping on the narrative band of just one pathway, and that's it. Just one. Someone's vulnerability is just one thing. Someone doing something like making their child food, but the food is what you disagree on. It's one
mm,
pathway as to why this is happening. And then the people will say, that's excuses, that's excuses. This is a human experience. This is a human experience. It's not excuses. We come to this conclusion for a reason. We are who we are for a reason,
yeah,
right? Our personality, our traits, they've evolved for reasons, you know? So it's not excuses. It's just getting to the root cause of potentially why.
yeah,
Where did these thoughts come from? Where did the mindset come from? Where did all your intrusive thoughts come from and limiting beliefs? No one can ever say to you, oh, that's an excuse for you to have limiting beliefs. If you've been told for a large majority of your life that you're worthless, you think you're gonna think the otherwise?
Right.
You'd have to be really willpowered and to actually combat that, especially if you're being told it by someone that you love, like your parents. Someone can't invalidate that by telling you it's excuses when, "Hey, what do you expect me to do? No one's ever given me the tools for anything else, so in my mind, I'm worthless."
Yeah.
So much more to the story. It's why even the labels make no sense. Lazy, excuses,
Mm.
da 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 da. You can't band-aid something that is literally beyond that. You put a band-aid on there, it takes 1 second for it to come off at this point because
Yeah.
there's so many layers to it, to the wound that humans have been experiencing for generations. So there's so much to this conversation, like my own mind is exploding with wanting to say all this stuff. But truthfully, that's why I'm saying there's no need for labels, there's no need to judge, and our conversations will continue to advocate for the pathways that we're aware of and the many more that we're potentially going to find out about.
You said that so beautifully because, like you said, when you grow up and you've had only certain things be told to you in a negative way or in a negative light, it takes years of work to undo that and then get to a place of stability. Not even overflow, but just stability. It can take that long. Maybe
Exactly.
for some people, it can take a lifetime. Some
Some
peasants, yeah,
people.
it can take a lifetime, and compassion is so needed. And I think about a video you sent me a little while ago. And I'm sorry, guys, if you're listening to this, I'm like, they're only talking about TikTok. So it's like, because it's connected. I promise. I promise. Um,
It's so connected.
Ashley sent me a video a little while ago about some scandal that went on with like a football team in Australia or whatnot, with like guys going to Vegas and whatnot, and then betraying their girlfriends or wives. I'm not sure if they were girlfriends or wives, but their significant others. And I read the comments in that video because it was a news report, and I read it and they were like, well, what do you expect guys to do when they go to Vegas? Like, that is so normal. The women should excuse the behavior. Like, they're part of a team and they just won. They were just guys. They were just celebrating. And I'm like, the joy of humanity.
Moment of silence, please.
Yes. Oh gosh.
What else do
It
you
just
say to that?
Yeah, it dismisses what these women must be going through. And then on top of that, I still have compassion for these commenters because I'm like, it's very evident that you grew up within a space or society that made you believe that it's okay to treat people this way, but it's not. And it must be difficult to change your mind, to change that kind of a mentality. And I agree that it can take time, but it is necessary. And it goes the same when it comes to the horrifying comments that can come when a victim has been abused and that comes out on the news or in some way on any open space where people have the ability to conversate. I have seen so many inhumane, terrible things, and it's honestly, I don't have understanding for a lot of it. I have to be honest with that. There are things people say and do that I can never wrap my head around about how that is even possible. But instead of meeting it with hate, I try to meet it with understanding. However, when you are in the space where you've been through something terrible, I can only say this when it comes to my personal experience, the one I shared prior in the episode 10 or 11, whenever that was. Um, when I was in a situation where I felt like my life was being threatened, and I was looking around for people to help me, and I opened up to people around me, I was met with so much blame onto myself. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I will just recap it and say that when I was 18, the ripe old age of being an adult, I was on my way to work. here in Germany, and a guy pulled up with his car, tried to get me into his car, and then paroled around the street several times for at least a half an hour, making it nearly impossible for me to get to work. My bus that I was waiting for never showed up, so I had to walk. And it was petrifying. And when I then had the time and the space and the opportunity to open up about my experience and get some just support or just to be heard, just to be seen, I was met with, well, what did you do? And when you're in that situation and you go through something like that, and that is what you're met with, it is literally the worst thing you could possibly say. It is literally the worst thing you could possibly do. And I think I mentioned in the last episode that the only thing people need in that space when they're in that moment, when they seek help, when they seek security in somebody, is just to be heard. It's to be seen, it's to be accepted, it's to be like, okay, I don't, even if it's a person that that, might have done something bad and you've never seen them in that space or with that character, but the person in front of you is saying, like, hey, I went through this just now, or a little while ago or whatever, and I need support. You can't just be like, "Oh, I've never seen this character from this person before. I don't know them to be that way." It's not about what you know. It's about what that person has experienced and providing them a safe and open space to share that and to have support and to be heard. Just be like, okay, tell me about it. Let's sit down. Is there anything I can do for you? Is there anywhere you need to go? Should we call help or like whatever it may be, whatever the situation may be. But the last thing that you should do is take it from your perspective or your experience of things and be like, well, you must have done something, or you must have misunderstood just because you yourself can't wrap your head around it. So, yeah, that support is the most important thing. Just be there, just listen. Just listen. Don't even say anything. Just listen. Sometimes that can be enough. Give them a hug if they feel comfortable with that. Listen, and then ask them what they wish to do if they have the capability of answering that in that moment. But let them know that they're supported and that they're loved, even if you yourself can't understand a certain situation or how something happened. Provide that for somebody else, or at least try to. Yeah.
Exactly. You're just so inspirational with your words.
Am I? Thank you.
Yes, you are. From a incredibly horrific experience, she is literally the image of someone that has broken through a lot of incredibly traumatic situations, and who she is now is so observant, observant. She is observant. Is that the word? Observant.
I
Her
think
out.
so. I think so.
Yeah.
It sounds right.
Yeah. She is very strong in her words and in her voice because she knows herself that these experiences were not deserving for her and they're not deserving for anyone else at all. So, yes, you are incredibly inspirational, just like anyone that comes out and shares their stories and their experiences. Everyone is, honestly. Human beings are, as much as there are moments where I sit there and I think, come on. As much as I picture myself if I was an alien, and I love using this, I came down this earth and I look down upon the human race, I would think, yeah, you know what? I might try the planet next door. I have that kind of view sometimes of humanity, but still, at the end of the day, when I see community being shared on TikTok in such a supportive way, because obviously there is the projections, but then there's also the support. And I've definitely seen it online. People show up in the moment where someone needs you to show up, just as I'm sure they need people to show up for them in the moments where they really need someone to. People are so capable of doing that. So capable. And I truly believe that you do not need to go through it to be that person for someone else. No one needs to go through some of the most heinous things or just trauma in general trauma in general to be able to understand. And I fully stand on that ledge, fully, because I haven't been through certain things that Nina's been through. I haven't felt how she's felt, but yet I can still provide what she needs in these moments. But even in other moments, just being there in the way of support and hearing and seeing and validating her in the true extent of that, not a forced extent, in a true extent of that. I just wanted to say as well, too, touching on, all the other sides of the spectrum and trying to validate them, in no way, shape, or form, especially when Nina was talking about the AFL team that did what they did. It's no way, shape, or it's no way, shape, or form validating the behavior of someone. It's just we, I guess, take. I don't know if I should speak for you, Nina, or just speak for myself.
Go ahead.
But I know you kind of do this too. We generally, Nina and I, we would talk about certain things that are happening in the world, and we take a step back sometimes and we do assess the potential whys. The things that we can think of and come up with as the connecting of the dots as to why this has unfolded the way it did. We don't always do that, but we have our moments where it's just so in your face in the
Yeah.
reality. This type of behavior that was validated with the team, we know that the ideal way of being a man is projecting certain behaviors that are, F boy and that was such a big thing once of us. Oh gosh. I wish
Yeah.
that could be eradicated from my brain. The whole validation of that being
Yeah.
an F boy. That whole thing has come from something else. It's just evolved into a new thing in a sense, or a new word to describe it, right? This is kind of the things that we do. We take it from, okay, past generations, how did they unfold it? And we just bring it down the lineage to the now. This is what we do. We take a step back and we think about it and observe the behaviors, just like we observe ourselves. We pick up on ourselves. So we're not validating any misbehavior. We're not validating any what's the word? We're not validating that kind of projective negative behavior, toxic behavior, however you want to describe it. We're just expanding the root causes as to potentially why it's unfolding the way it has been. And like I said, we don't always need to know the why, and I truly believe that in some circumstances, right? But it's just enough to think, how can we really find ways to break the cycles from continuing through the generations, because they don't need to. They don't need to. Like the whole man up thing, it doesn't need to continue to existing, where we know we're human beings, we're just scratching the surface in the way of that. But we talk about men's mental health, we're aware now. Let's start moving forward and take these labels and these stigmatizing words out of our society. They don't help anyone. They're not for the highest good of anyone. Has anyone seen any man feel great about being told to man up when they're in the worst position of their life? Because I don't. I mean, when someone comes to me and says, it's just a woman thing to be emotional, you think I sit there and I say, thank you so much, sir. I feel so validated in self, mind, body, and spirit. My gosh, I have been completely released of my trauma. Hallelujah. Yeah, I probably would say that sarcastically. I would say that sarcastically. But I do not, and I do not hold space for that. I do not, because I would never, ever, ever project that on anyone else. I'm not going to hold space for that kind of behavior. Same time, I'm aware of why they're projecting it. I know why they're projecting it. Over my lifetime, my courage experience, what I've learnt the most about going through certain things is people are, one, afraid to acknowledge it at all because it is absolutely too difficult to acknowledge something that they know is heinous, but they don't even want to acknowledge how heinous it is. So if they can't acknowledge any part of it, then they'll just, "I can't do it, like, I can't cope with that." Like,
Mhm.
I don't wanna even have a taste of how difficult this conversation is. I just can't do any of it at all. And then, like we've been talking about, they have their reasons why they're in this space because it's been through certain things in their life, and it's been too difficult to see that. How do they see other realities in society that have happened? You know, how do they see all that? That's one thing I've learned. We are s oh gosh, we are such a unhealed society that I kind of get why a lot of people aren't heard, seen, and validated. And trust me, that's hard for me to say because I know what it's like being through these experiences and just being so invalidated, right? And my anger and my sadness towards it, it's like the first trauma is going through the experience. The second trauma is what happens afterwards. So I am in no way, shape, or form, sprinkling a bit of fairy dust on that experience, right? But it's tough because we truly are such an unhealed society that it's just I sit there and I'm like, I think I know why you're doing this. I know why you're reacting the way you're reacting. I know why you're saying what you're saying. I know why you can't validate what I've been through. I know why you can't look at my face if I'm crying. I know why people can't validate vulnerability because society has been stripped of human emotions and human vulnerability and told that you're not allowed to feel that. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. We've been controlled in a way of human that we feel like we can't be human. So then anything that is human is stigmatized, which makes it difficult to validate each other's experiences because then we can't see that a human being is suffering and has been through something quite traumatic that is beyond what's the word? Comprehension. It's beyond comprehension. Can you imagine having your body violated? People can't because it's too hard to even validate that it's a reality, that human trafficking exists. It's just too hard for some people because in their life, things have been too hard to validate, right? It's mostly one of the biggest reasons why, in my opinion, that this happens. Yeah. It's been such a tough journey because I could definitely sit here and say that stigmatization really was the main part of my healing, as well as from the events that occurred. Healing, the way that people responded to it and how they treated my space afterwards. Oh, 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 like, oh, there's just no word. I can't think of a word because it was just, even still to this day, there are moments that my mind will mm, like bring the memory to the surface and I'll just think of what this person said, how this person reacted, how I felt in that moment. I'm reminded of it, just like many people are consistently reminded of it. At one point, it was almost every day. And then branches, like I've been telling you all, then it'd meet you with, "You're not loved. You're not supported. You're not heard. No one cares. Everyone thinks it's your fault that you should have done this and this and this. You failed yourself. You failed this. You." That's even another story about what unfolds in your own mind when you're trying to heal from something that sometimes you don't even want to acknowledge because of how painful that experience was. And then you get invalidated. And then that on top of that, like, even my mind is trying to put two and two together right now. But it was it was truly, truly just such a heartbreak, like a grief in a sense, to have someone that you thought cared about you to sit there and say, well, maybe it didn't happen like that. Maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Like, why didn't you do okay, well, if that happened to you, then why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Oh, what was his name? When did this happen? Instigator mode sets in for them. I want you to prove it to me that this happened to you. That is heartbreak. Sitting there and being interrogated by people. And other people may say, well, of course they're going to ask questions, you know? They've got to know if you're telling the truth or not.
I think the other half of that as well is dismissive attitudes, because I definitely had
Yeah.
that in my experience. I think it was during my first trip. I had gone in 2017, which was ages ago, to Korea, South Korea, and there was this place that I traveled to with a friend of mine, and we went on the subways there because that is the main transportation. You don't really use cars there. And I went to this location that was mainly known as kind of the foreigner place, you know, funky bars, nice restaurants, things like that. And it was Saturday, if I remember, Friday, Saturday. So it was a weekend, it was packed. And that genuinely, just like off topic, like crowded places make me anxious.
I
So I
hear
was
that.
already, yeah, I was already in this state of like, okay, let's get to the place that we need to go to. We were on the train together. We were there. I was on the train and I was standing because there weren't many stops that we needed to take until we got off. And there was this man just staring at me this entire time, just like staring into my soul. And I was just trying to ignore it. I was like, when I caught it, I was like, okay, don't engage. And I kind of looked away. Long story short, we got out, and in the train, tried to like signal to my friend that something was happening, but clearly I couldn't say it because he was right there next to me. And then when we got out, I was like, okay, I gotta tell them. So we got out, and I was like, okay, we need to leave here. And there was like a ton of people. There were lines to get out of the station, and everybody was going up the escalator. I was like, I'm gonna take the stairs. As much as I hate the stairs, I'm gonna take the stairs because I want to avoid any chance of running into this person. Because I had a feeling of them coming up to me, that they would do that, that they're like gearing themselves up to do that. So I'm like grabbing my friend, and we're walking up the stairs, and they're like, why are you taking the stairs? I'm like, it's faster. Let's go, let's get out of here. And when we're on top, no, as I'm walking up the stairs, my friend is next to me, and I look over because the escalator was on the right. And this man is sprinting past people to get up there. And I'm like, it's legitimately like a cheetah in the wild trying to catch up to a gazelle. Like that was what it was. I can laugh about it now, because there is some humor in that. But I always before, and this is why I'm mentioning it, always before was like, if I'm with a person when I go through something, I will be safer. And that was a moment when I realized it is not being with a person, it's being with the right person that can make you feel safer. Because in this situation, we got up top, and he's waiting there for me. I don't even know how fast that man flew up the escalator because there were so many people. It was crazy. I was like, dude, he needs to be like an athlete, something like a long sprinter. So he's standing there, and he's like opening his mouth, approaching me, and I'm like, I'm not acknowledging it. So I'm turning away. I'm grabbing my friend, and I'm like, there's a man following me. She's like, what? I'm like, there's a man following me. Where? Who? And I'm like, my friend, I'm like, don't look around because he's gonna. There's a man following me, not you, me. He's trying to approach me. I don't want to be approached. I've made that known. He's still approaching us. Long story short, she doesn't do anything. This friend of mine, just like, okay. And we get out of the station, and we walk, and this man follows us. I think he follows us for like 2 blocks. And I keep looking around, I keep turning, and she's already somewhere else. She's already like, what restaurant do we go to? We need to do this. And I'm like, I felt even worse in that presence because it was so dismissive in the moment. And thinking about it now, I don't even know like, I ended up talking to some friends afterwards. One of them was a police officer, and he was like, "Listen, if it happens again, just call me." I'm like, "Dude, you're like forever away. I don't even know if you're working." Like, and from all the stuff that I'm hearing, I don't know if police can really help. As we've established worldwide, the police is just kind of like a failure in that sense. And he didn't really, quote unquote, do anything. That's always the thing, right? Like, unless they do something, unless they attack you, unless they break that barrier, nobody can really do anything. Um, or at least that is typically what I tend to hear. So, that having been said, that ended up hurting me a lot more. The dismissive attitude of like, well, okay, or like it's not a big deal, or it's like, he's that's just the way he is. That's just what he does. That's just his humor. That's just his humor. That's just how he is. That's just his vibe. Like that kind of dismissive, that's just how he acts, that's just how they are, that's just how she is. That type of a response is also very hurtful to somebody who is in a position of seeking help, seeking safety, seeking being heard and seen and validated for their experience, for being fearful. Oh gosh, there are so many ways. Like you, Ashley,
I mean,
I want to go back. I want to go back for a second and just say the same goes to you. You said that through everything that I've gone through, I have been kind of like a light. It's the same with you. Ashley, you have been through so many hard experiences, and yet you're still so loving, you're still so gracious, you're still so kind. And dude, I don't you say the word dude a lot, but guys, anybody who's listening, dude, she is the best. Whenever there's something going on that is supposed to be met with compassion, she is immediately on it. She was on it like yesterday. She's like, she always does the right things. Ashley, you are incredible. Really, and your heart is so full, and you are so perfect in every single way in my eyes and in the world in general. And really, just everybody needs an Ashley in her life, in their life.
there's gonna be two merch t-shirts. Nina and mine. There's gonna be so much
Yeah,
merch.
but it is incredibly, like, even just hearing you talk, Ashley, it was definitely a bit interesting to see the emotions that kind of occurred in myself, because it is surprisingly at times still very hard to talk about things like these. And this is just something that I've never been in an experience thus far, thankfully, and I'm grateful so, where anybody has physically harmed me in that way. I've been stalked, followed, tried to be pulled into cars and things like that, like physically, but it's never actually happened. And still, for me in this space, it's difficult for me to talk about. So, to anybody out there who's gone through so much worse, I just it is something that I definitely want to talk cautiously about and of, because it is certain things can happen to you in this life that will change you for your life and you forever. And I think it's always such a difficult thing to live in this society and try to move forward from things, especially like I said in the beginning of the episode, don't be in victim mentality. Things will get better. Things like that. It's not applicable to every situation that a person goes through. And there are things that happen in this world that are so bad or terrible or just life changing in a negative sense that sometimes people can't recover. And I want to take this moment again to say it's okay to have suffered, it's okay to have gone through things, it's okay to have had experiences where you felt that way or where something happened to you. It's not up to you. You were never in control of that person. You were never in control of what happened to you. You are in control of healing and moving forward and trying to move forward. I definitely agree with that. But like I said, we as a society owe people a victim, owe people of violence, of crime, of assault, of any type of victimization a lot more. And it's okay to take years to heal. It's okay to take your time trying to build up something for yourself. I think oftentimes for me personally, this is something that I've experienced, something I have experienced even recently with other situations where it's like people put it on a timeline. They're like, you're supposed to heal at a certain point. You're supposed to be over something at a certain point. And it's like, that's not really how life works. That's not how the human mind works. That's not how your emotions work or how trauma works. And Ashley said this beautifully before. Trauma is the initial thing happening to you, but then there's additional stuff that you have to go through, you know? And I want to say this, I don't know what can be done. Like, I'm just one person, I'm one tiny puzzle piece in the grander scheme of life, in the grander picture of life. But I want to make this society a lot safer, you know, so things like this can become less of a thing. Um, Violence against women, violence against people who are in the LGBTQIA community, violence against anybody, children, whatever, dismissiveness, it needs to heal. And like Ashley said, everything has a source. There's a line throughout generations that lead back to that. And when it comes to men's mental health, women's mental health, people's mental health, human mental health as a whole, we definitely need to start talking about these hard things, because I can say this from experience. It is not easy to speak to people who are of different generations who just don't see it that way. You know, where they're like, well, this is the way I am. I'm not going to change. This is how it is. And it's difficult. I have understanding for it. Just recently, I went through something like that where I opened up about something and I was like, why am I being met with so much anger? You know, it's like, oh, okay, I get that that's a you thing. It's a timeline thing. It's your life thing. It's something that you've been through. I have understanding for it, but we also need to ask the question, how can we create change to the point, okay, no, let me actually rephrase that. How can we make it okay for people to start opening up so we can actually provide lasting change on a societal level? Because if everybody's still in a corner somewhere being like, I can't, I don't want to talk about it, nope, this is too much, or I'm just going to ignore it, I'm just going to stick with what I know and ignore the rest. We need to start breaking down those barriers, because they are barriers. And you might think, to anybody listening to this that may fall into that pattern, you may think that that's a protection thing. It's a wall of protections to keep you safe, but it could actually lead to you being imprisoned. Instead of it being a safe space for yourself and your ideologies, it could be a prison for you in terms of how to move forward and how to be more open, how to be more compassionate to people who are outside of your experience of life, if that makes sense. So don't be imprisoned by the way things have always been for you, or trying to keep yourself safe. You can keep yourself safe and still have an open mind and still be there for others and still serve your community in whichever way that you see fit, if that's what you want to do, or at least provide a safe space when you are met with people who need that. When you are met with people and experiences outside of what you know personally, you can open yourself up to that and still be safe within yourself, but do it in a healthy way. I hope that that makes sense.
Yep.
I feel like
It
that
does.
went a little bit of a tangent.
As I said, my friend, we're not reading a script. We're kind of going
Yeah.
by what feels right to say. So it's okay. Perfection
Thank
does
you.
not exist.
Thank you. Yes, it does not.
I just think it's incredibly valid what you said, to still be feeling a certain way as we talk about this, because we may always feel a certain way when we're talking about this stuff. How can we not? How can we
Yeah.
not, you know? It makes perfect sense. Like I said, it's not just one layer of trauma from the experience, it's many layers of trauma. And you have society to deal with. You have society's ideations, their belief systems, even people's limiting beliefs can be projected onto you. There are so many layers to healing that I can't begin to explain to you all who aren't aware of just how many, just how long it can even take to even validate those layers, to even see them, to even go through them. When someone's when you hear of someone that's been in therapy for 20, 30 years over, let's say in your ideology, one thing, right? People see it as one thing that they've been through. No, it's not just that one thing. It's the layers that connect to that. It's potentially what unfolded. What psychological impact did it have on them? What physical conditions did it have on them? Think broader. At least try to, because everyone wants this one way or another. People want someone to broaden their horizon on their experiences and validate that. People can deny it to kingdom come, but I have seen it enough to be able to say that this is what people do want this. They want this, right? So we're generally sitting here as two people that have been through some pretty inhumane crap, telling you that our healing is, it can't be timelined. It cannot be, because we are still trying to figure out the layers of things that we're feeling that we don't even fully understand yet. We're still trying to come to terms with it. We're still trying to make some kind of sense of it. We're still trying to find groundedness in it. We're still trying to, where do we go next? What do we do? How do we, when emotions come up just randomly and you realize they're connected to what you've been through, and then you got to figure out how to work through those emotions, and you never know. There's no timeline, there's no structure, there's no diary, there's no journal. You have no idea when something's going to be triggered. Someone could literally, like, I'm going to speak for myself for a second. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD at 21. The experiences that I've had is sexual assault as well as physical assault and emotional abuse and many other things that I won't go into right now, but a list of things. And over the years of experiencing certain layers come to the surface, but even new layers when someone would just say that person's name. There was a point where I would just hear the name, and it really depends. Sometimes I'd react one way, but then another day I'd react a different way. It just, there's no structure of how to respond and how to react when you, when something is, I don't really like the word triggered in some sense, but I can't think of any other word right now. So I'm just going to say when you're triggered from a traumatic memory, especially having complex PTSD, I have never forgotten. And it has been with me from night, day, even in my dreams. It would haunt me. I'd just be driving in the car and it hit me. I was never allowed a moment of peace from the things that unfolded in my life and from the positions that people put me in and put my body in. And for someone to come and say, I'm going to timeline your healing, you don't get to, because neither do I. I can't, and I will never give anyone a structured timeline on when I'm going to be okay in their eyes, when I'm going to be normal in their eyes. I don't think, in a way, I will ever be someone that can eradicate all of this from my mind. I'm at a point where I can talk about this and not completely combust. I'm talking about it right now, and I never really could fully actually say what I'm saying at one point, even though it's still difficult and I can feel it and it's okay. What was I saying, Nina?
I'm so in the emotions of it. No, that there's no timeline for when you get to finish feeling the way you feel or kind of monitor it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I lost my train of thought for a second.
Okay.
It just like, I think it just got to a point where I'm gonna leave this in the episode. I think my mind got to a point where I think I was pushing it a little too much. So it just kind
Mhm.
of, it shut off for a second.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing, is there's still little elements of complex PTSD. Like it's not in the full extent of what it was, but it's still kind of there where I can disassociate from what I'm saying and I can just kind of block out, because it is just, it's a heinous past. And that was my point, is thinking about the amount of people that have asked me, it happened 18 years ago, you were a child. Isn't there a point where you've moved on from it? Oh, you're a teenager. I mean, don't you think you want to move forward now and let things go? I don't get the choice. I never had the choice in the first place. What makes you think I get the choice on the timeline or the healing? And again, I understand where society gets these ideations from, but at the same time, it is, and I said this before, it is just so difficult to actually process it being said to you, where it's like, I never asked for this to happen. So I didn't ask for the journey of it. And whatever that is, I'm still learning because I don't fully know. I can't give you anything. I've got nothing to give to anyone that believes that I owe them something in my healing journey. Society wants me to show up a certain way. Ashley, you should be professional. You should speak like this. You should do this. Why do you have anxiety? Why are you scared of going out? Why are you scared of being approached by a man? Why are you afraid of this? Why are you afraid of that? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe because Bob the Builder couldn't fix it. I think I've used that before. It's purely because you're expecting something from your awareness that is invalidating to the reality. And I'm generally saying this, and I hope people hear me when I'm saying this. Your awareness is not open to the reality if that is what you're going to respond with. It will be in my time only, whatever that is. I had to learn to let go of control. Because, geez, I feel like so many people, they just want to be healed. We just want to be healed. We want to move forward. I want to live my life. I don't want to be bombarded with these emotions and these feelings. It doesn't feel good to wake up in the morning and remember what happened. Doesn't feel good to remember how invalidated you were by the people around you that you thought, like in your head, you thought loved you, but yet they don't even know how to respond to these things. And then sometimes I feel like I'm going insane because I just can't sometimes find groundedness in chaos. And yet people are expecting silence and subtleness and you to only show a very small amount of your emotions, a small amount of emotions when you've been violated in more ways than one, and yet you're expecting small over something that is beyond my even arms capacity. Like, it's beyond what I can do right now. The expectations that society has on us is ridiculous. It is completely invalidating. And like Nina says, we have to push forward in these cycles. We have to move out of them because they're doing nothing but invalidating everyone's journey in one way, shape, or form, not even just within what I'm saying in that traumatic area, but vast majority of human experiences, people are being completely invalidated. And who does it help? What you see, what you see on TikTok, what you see on the news, even though I don't watch the news, but sometimes it gets posted on TikTok. Some of that is a showing to you of people that feel that they have to do certain things to release, to be heard, to be seen. I don't use attention seeking either. I mean, some people combust, some people explode. And I just said it just then. Some days I feel like I'm going to explode because I don't even know how to cope some days. Even though I know what I know, some days I don't know how to cope because society's expecting me to cope and people around me are expecting me to do this and that and this. I can't. I can't do it for everyone else. So if you have other human beings that are not in the position that I'm in, and then they just explode, depending on where they are psychologically and what comes with that, they may feel they need to go out there and attack people, go out there and create harm, go online and project harm, all because society is not breaking through enough the cycles that are just keeping people suppressed, are keeping people repressed. Is that the right word? Are keeping them so secluded in self that they bottle it all up and they just keep it there. but eventually you're a human being, you know, it's like that whole theory of the boiling pot of water. Eventually it happens. We're human beings, we're not robots. You know, we're going to feel. And when we're feeling too much, just to use an example, a quick example, it's like when people find, like if you're arguing with family, let's say, right? And you're arguing about something specific, right? But in that moment, it opens up a doorway to just bring it all to the surface and start bringing in something that happened 5 years ago, and this and that and this and that. And people can say to that person, that happened 5 years ago. Get over it. If they haven't been able to release that emotion or talk about how they're feeling, express it, heal it in the best way they can. And I don't mean fully either, but just find that kind of love and validation within self in their feelings and so many other more things. When the moment presents itself, release occurs. So many people do this. I've done it 100% because your body is soaring so much. It's going to find ways to just release, even in little increments. We'll always find a way. So as much as it might be going like on a complete roller coaster when I say all this, I can't say it enough of someone that gets it, but also is still trying to cope with the aftermath of the experiences from people that I really held dear to my heart and that I really thought would, you know, provide at least an open space, and then to have the opposite occur and to understand in my way of why. It's so important. It's imperative that we break through for each other, truly. Imperative.
Absolutely. Just, I don't even know what to add to that because you fully explained it, the whole cycle of everything. There is no timeline to how long it takes for you to grieve, for you to get over things, for you to get over, I don't even like that terminology, but for you to come to a point where you can move throughout life without it having as much of an effect as it used to have. Let me use that instead of get over, because I don't like that term. Um,
Mm.
I can only speak for myself when I say that I've definitely been in certain situations where people are like, "Well, aren't you over that already?" Legit, like a couple weeks ago, I've had this conversation where I was really upset, and I got projected on for being upset. And they're like, "Well, this happened like forever ago. Why are you still upset? Isn't that like an ego thing? Aren't you just like keeping yourself stuck?" And I'm like, I think it is hilarious that people think we have that much control about how or over how our body processes things, or our mind. People say you need to control your emotions, you need to do this, you need to do that. What is with all this control? What is with all that control? Because, like, if you allow yourself to just feel and go through the emotions, right? Not let it run you, not let it like get you to a point where you start projecting, but just feeling them, letting yourself be okay with feeling how you're feeling, with the thoughts that are coming up, trying your best to meet it with compassion. And dude, it is, I said dude again, it is the hardest thing to do to meet yourself with compassion when you've been through hard things and you're experiencing difficult emotions. You can, like Ashley said, you can have years of not feeling anything, and that'll be one moment that can like make you cry or make you feel low, out of something that somebody said or a name that gets mentioned that reminds you of a certain thing, right? There is no timeline. There is no timeline. There just isn't. And if you get angry or you project onto a person because they aren't quote unquote healing or quote unquote absolving themselves of the pain of what they've been through fast enough, then that's a you thing. That's not a them thing. And in fact, you're only adding a lot more for that person to go through, to heal through, if you're meeting it with content, not content,
Yes.
contempt, with anger, with frustration. Because why are you frustrated? Why are you frustrated? Like, I get it. You're concerned of your friend, of your family member, etc. But like, why are you meeting it with anger? Why don't
Mm.
you meet it with compassion? Be like, hey, do you want to talk about it? Like, how do you feel? And if they're like, no, I don't want to talk about it, it's just something that I feel today. I just want to be by myself, or I just want to be in this. I've had this so often, Ashley, where I've been upset. And because I couldn't smile that day, people get pissed off at me. Like, why aren't you smiling? Why aren't you happy today?
Mhm.
Sometimes it feels like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
part of a cult. Where they're like, you have to be happy. You have to have it all together. You have to just, yeah, have that
Oh my
mask
gosh.
on. That's
Yep.
not reality. That's not real life.
And
Sometimes
then
I'm gonna wake up and be
advocate for mental health.
depressed. Right.
They advocate for mental health the next day.
Love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. I have gotten so many different responses from just showing up in the emotion that I need to be in that moment. And it's interesting how that tends to trigger other people around me.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a healing process, and I'm trying my best. And Ashley, you are as well. And to anybody out there who's listening, don't let anybody make you feel bad for being in pain or for not being happy or for not being exactly where that person is comfortable with you being, because it's about them.
Mm.
When they respond like that, it's that they're uncomfortable with you being whatever it is you're being, whether that's happy,
Yes,
sad, depressed, whatever. It's them being uncomfortable with it because they themselves aren't processing their emotions. We've said this many
exactly.
times before. It's a them thing. It's not a you thing. You keep doing what you need to do for yourself, and you're okay. It's okay. It's okay to have gone through what you've gone through. It's not okay what happened. It's not okay what that person did to you or what that situation was, but it's okay that you feel pain over it. It's okay that you feel confusion or whatever it is that you're
Mhm.
experiencing emotional wise. It's okay to be where you're at. And don't let anybody tell you to be somewhere else or to push through or rub some dirt on it. Like, no, that's not reality. Rub some love on it, not dirt.
Just another cycle, my friend, is the
Yeah,
reaction of anger towards something that they don't know how to cope with. It's kind of like just sitting there and watching someone be vulnerable and they get all like,
right.
that's what it reminds me of. It's just a response of, I don't know how to cope with someone expressing what they're expressing in front of me right now. So I'm just going to respond in anger to try to control it because otherwise I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to do. That's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of just this ungroundedness of instability because we've been so stigmatized when it comes to human. It's been so stigmatized that no one can just meet someone that shows emotion. Well, let me rephrase that. That society finds it difficult to meet someone showing emotion with compassion, empathy, kindness, listening, validation, hearing. Instead, it's re- meeting them with what they know. But the unfortunate thing about this is staying in that space of what you know, staying in that space, because I'm telling you, you yourselves deserve the compassion. You deserve to be heard, seen, and validated too, right? But how are you giving that to other people as well? And if you say to yourself, no one's ever done this for me, I hear you. I really hear you. Down to my core, I hear you. And to say this too, right? Every single thing that I faced in my life, I faced alone. Alone. Even as a child, a young child, I faced that alone. No one was there to hold my hand or hug me or hold me, or no one was there to comfort me and tell me that it was okay or that what I was feeling was valid. Even the aftermath of I wasn't diagnosed with mental health conditions until I was 21, really. Actually, let me rephrase that. I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, I think at around 12 or 11. It was around that mark. But that was so invalidated. And that's a whole different story in a sense. But along the journey, I didn't fully find out about all this to the extent that should have known before until 21. So during that period and even afterwards, there was such a loneliness in this journey. There was beyond the word of, loneliness epidemic, in the full extent of that in your own secluded space. That was just such a reality. It felt just me in this oblivion, and that was it. And that's all life was, and that's all life looked like to me. And there was nothing, there was no one. Eventually, I started seeing a psychologist, but it took me time to even process that space as a, oh, safe, potentially okay, potentially. And mind you, my psychologist is a man. And I actually, sometimes I still can't believe I was like, yeah, I feel like it's okay, but let me suss that out a bit. But I didn't even know I was doing that either. So, you know, but my point is that it's still painful to talk about being alone during the hardest times of your life. And I think anyone can say that. Anyone can. Even as Nina was talking about, she had a friend with her. But when that person can't meet you at a certain level, it feels like you feel like you're alone. It feels lonely. And in the aftermath of coping with that, it's just you. It's just you. Even through that entire experience and even telling people, and still the walls go up and the invalidation continues and so on and so forth. I still I still would always choose to do better than what has been done. And that's not some kind of medal of honor or anything like that. There are some days where I definitely, and I admit it, there are some days where it's like, I don't want to hear anyone right now because I'm angry with humanity. I'm angry with human beings, 100%. Human beings haven't given me a reason to trust them in some extent because some of them that I've come across, it's just been anything but safe. There's no care about you as a human being. Like, you're a living, breathing person. People don't see that. That's kind of been the unfolding, especially as a teenager, right? There's so much proof, and I've actually said this before and admitted it. There's so much proof for me personally, for me to have become the opposite of who I am today. But at the same time, and in realism, I would have just been like them. I would have been like their personality traits. I would have taken that on and potentially been Nina and I wouldn't have been friends because I would have been such an unsafe space for her in her own healing journey. And I can't imagine being that person. I really cannot imagine being that person. I don't want to be and I never will be, but essentially that I know that in my anger, on the days where I get really annoyed, I would still choose this person because someone has to break the cycle. People have to do it. We have to do it. We have no choice. We have to do it for the future generations because while human beings are, on this planet, you'll have other human beings that will project certain behaviors. And I really hate to say it because I don't want it to happen. No one wants it to happen. But essentially, while certain things are existing, where can we improve on making this journey a whole less relevant? But also, how can we validate and see people, even those that experienced it 30 years ago, 40 years ago? How can we change the narrative now and validate their space and see them and hear them? How can we create the change that's needed? We have to start somewhere. And just to say this as well, someone that I know, I did something for them. They looked at me and they said, "Do you need something back? Do you want something back?" I said, "No." Why do you think that I would want something back from doing something that I generally want to do for you? I don't need anything back for doing something. Because the things that they have essentially, the unfolding in their life has been around if I do something for someone, they have to do something for me. Or it is just kind of like that is the analogy. That's the analogy. So someone else has come in and done something completely different and they go, "So you don't want money?" Kind of like those videos, and I don't know if you've seen them, my dear friend. The guys that are going around, and I need to say they're amazing. They're going around to people's houses and saying, "I do free, like, mowing on Fridays, and I put it on YouTube. can I mow your lawn? I think that's great. That's such a
Yeah.
great idea, by the way. I have to say that is, oh, I love it. See, human beings are amazing. I think that's perfect. But the response from some people, they stand there and they go, it's free. Is there something to this? Is there like a terms and conditions? Like there's something on the back burner, you're just gonna come out afterwards and be like, "Oh, you owe." It's like this automatic system within of, "Okay, you're gonna, like, get me somehow, like, you're gonna hurt my space somehow, right?" Right? That is devastating to witness. It truly is devastating to witness that human beings expect other human beings to harm them or to ask for something and take, 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 take. This is why another reason why it's imperative to break these cycles, because living that kind of life where you think that everyone that steps into your space is harmful, which is validated, right, in some sense, but living that kind of life, and I can say this personally, is just so, what's the right word? I can't think of the right word right now. But all I'm gonna say is it takes away the way that you see life. It takes away your desires of life, even if you start to have them. It's just the thought of what human beings would do if you were to step out and show yourself is just so, what's the word? Oh my gosh.
Debilitating.
Yeah, debilitating. We'll use that one. It's so debilitating. It's debilitating to take another step in your journey. You just take 10 steps back because you just don't trust that humanity is going to treat you like a damn human being that you are. There are so many more reasons why these cycles need to be broken. It has to start somewhere. And if we're all just going to sit around and say, well, no one did it for me, which I get it. But if we're just going to continually do that, there's no progression in it. Realistically, there's no progression in that. There's no space for movement. Even if you start very small, it's okay. No one's going to dictate how it rolls, but just the point that it has to roll. Otherwise, future generations, more traumatized people, still a very unhealed society. We've got to start somewhere. That's my point. No matter where it is, just start somewhere. Yeah.
That is beautiful. It is because, like you said, the work that we do is not just for ourselves, it is for everybody
Mm.
in the future. You know, it might, the way that I see life and the way that I've kind of learned how it works is that everything goes on a cycle, right? Everything is circular. Everything is a generational or circular cycle in life, and that's kind of what I've learned throughout my time of just living life. You know, if you haven't healed from something, eventually it'll circle back around in a different way for maybe it to be healed for you to get that opportunity. And I don't mean that in like an ominous way of like, oh my god, it's gonna come back around. I mean that more so in a
Mm.
supportive way, you know. And the same goes with generational cycles. We are doing this work not just for ourselves, we're doing it for the future, for future generations, and not just within our own families, but for the world. Because the standards and the changes that we set into motion from here on out is going to affect people down the line outside of our own existence. And something that I always hold on to whenever I'm faced with a really hard decision or just point of view or I don't know, just difficulty within life is that I always want to be a loving person. I always want to be exemplifying or walking in love. I don't just want to love people and receive love. I want to walk in love. I want to become more broadened in it. I want to widen that horizon. How can I be more compassionate for others? How can I do more? And become or stay. I would say become a more loving person. I'll stick with that because life makes it easy. for you to turn cold. If that's really what you wanted, you can just turn cold like that, you know?
Mhm.
But I don't want to be a person like that. I want to be loving, and it's hard. It's hard to choose the higher road. It always is. It always is. But it is so worth
Mhm.
it. And like Ashley said, I can't imagine being anybody else than this person
Mm.
that I am now. And had I made the decisions people had made for me or wanted me to choose, I would not be happy within myself and who I was because I wasn't living up to what I feel my soul is supposed to do and who I am supposed to be, you know? And I feel like if we walk more into love or try to be as loving as we can be, it opens up our souls and it opens up ourselves to our souls to experience ourselves in a different light than maybe we have known before. Kind of like a flower. That's kind of how I pictured it as. Um, some people say onion, but you know that's a it's a bit rough. I like flower. I like that symbolism a lot more. So to anybody out there that's gone through really hard things or is just like, you know what, I can't because I've seen it. I will speak on this just a tad bit. I've seen so many videos with kind of the state of the world and everything that's going on right now. So many people say I've lost hope in humanity. I don't understand why I'm even here or why we do what we do or how people can act this way. I've completely lost faith and hope. You are not at fault for the bad things that happen in this world, but you can make a change by being more loving, by being more compassionate, by opening yourself up and providing that safe space in however way you see fit or in whichever way you think it might help society or people, even in your own circles, or maybe even just yourself. That small moment where you get to decide of should I turn cold or should I lean into the emotion and go the extra mile and be like, okay, just because it hasn't happened to me or I didn't receive that love or that care, I'm going to make sure that I get to give that to somebody else. That small decision there can make a lifetime of a difference for somebody else. And in that way, you have already changed the world because that's what they always love to say you can't do much, you can't do anything. No, you can do a
Mm.
lot with the decisions you make for yourself, for others, and most importantly, for how you move forward. The projection, or no, the direction in which you go to, in which you take the road which you walk, the higher road, so to say. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add on top of that, Ashley. But I am just like I'm unleashed. I'm unleashed.
If you're ever curious on, I guess, how to really show that kind of love or how to really step into that space, I guess it's just a real, and this is only a very small portion of the reality, but I guess it's really assessing what is the desire for you? What, how, how do you desire to be treated? How do you desire to be seen, heard, and validated? I guess it's really just assessing your desires to then reflect that back to society as well. And as I said, that's a tumbleweed in a way. There's a lot more to that story. We know, trust me. But as Nina said before, some people have the ideology that some things don't have any kind of, movement in society. They don't create any kind of change. But the tiniest things, and I've seen it, make the biggest differences. Truly. And I have seen it. One act of kindness. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna use this as an example. I'm gonna use it as an example. One time I was in McDonald's drive-through and I paid for the person behind me. And what did it do? It created a ripple effect. And to some people, you can have whatever ideology you want, but essentially, it's the mere fact that something that people consider to be small can create a ripple effect of kindness that pass on from people who human to human, is my point, right? The ability that what you consider small, the ability that it actually has, especially if someone has never experienced kindness before or love, which is a lot of people, unfortunately. Or they've experienced love, but it's conditional. Again, so much to say with that one. But if you've had someone that hasn't experienced certain elements of kindness and compassion and that, and then they experience even a small amount of it, it's almost like imagine like imagine like what's the greatest way I can say this? Imagine like a heart that has, like, I'm going to use the analogy that's been broken, right? Let's say that, and it's kind of just grey. It's grey because that's how it feels sometimes. And then someone adds a bit of kindness into that, sprinkles even a little bit, and then suddenly it's like this little bit of light just kind of beams out of it because they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, that lady really just paid for my food tonight. Like, I've never had that before. I don't have to pay for it." And you never know, that could have been they could be budgeting, they could really need someone to do this for them, and you pay for their groceries, and they're sitting there thinking, "Never in my life have I ever had this before, and this just feels warm. It feels safe, it feels good, it feels like I'm seen," you know? In one way or another. Seeing isn't just with eyes. Feeling seen is someone just purely, even they can't see it or even hear what you're going through. It's just validating that space. Even us talking on this podcast, hearing, seeing, and validating other people's spaces, even though they're not here physically, even though we don't know all of your stories, we're still doing what we need to do and what we feel is right. It's the small things that can really bring even a tiny light, which is still something to something that has felt so grey. And I use grey because essentially that color kind of feels so connected to like that feeling of, oh, you know.
Yeah.
So in reality, it's never small. It's just what you make of it. If you create it as something small, then you're just putting that kind of manifestation into it. But really, I've seen the acts of kindness and I felt it to myself as well. Oh, geez, I have felt it myself. And I could name so many people right now that have definitely contributed to that. Geordie, one of them. It is, you never know, our friends. You just never know what that act of kindness might do, really. You really don't know. Even if they don't thank you for it, it can be difficult to actually thank people, especially if you've never had it before. It's a whole part of advocacy right there. Some people can't acknowledge what you've done because it's like they're processing what you've just done, and so on and so forth. So definitely think about that, what you desire for self, and maybe in small ways, how you can just bring that out there into society. Start with the people around you, maybe. Whatever it is, it's your journey, however you want to do it, but at least it's something on the pathway of change. That's the point. There's no right or wrong way to do it, essentially, as long as it's for the good of self and others, no harm, right? But we need the pathway of change. We need movement because what we were doing and have been doing, we have to learn from it. We have to learn from it for the sake of all of us, to exist on this planet. We're on this planet. We can't go anywhere else. So we might as well do what we can to make our home a safe one.
Absolutely. And what I will leave off with is this. We, in our society, and I don't know if it's been the same in Australia, but just having lived in America and living in Germany, you sometimes get into this mindset of only big people can create lasting change. And I think over the last few months, with everything that's going on world-wise and war-wise, if you know, you know, so many quote unquote commoners have created lasting impact on people who have been on the receiving end of being victims of war, having gotten them to safety, having gotten them food, shelter, whatever it may be. And it was
Mm.
the regular people, the quote unquote small people, who created that change. And that is change that fundamentally changed that other person's life forever and their genealogy and going down the line of so many future civilizations, possibly in generations, and you don't need to think that your actions, whether that be $5 for somebody who may be in need, or paying for groceries, like Ashley said, or paying for McDonald's, that creates lasting impact further than you can see with your eyes. And like Ashley said, you don't just see with your eyes, you see with your heart. And if you lead with that, I truly believe that that is the best way to go, about life and people,
Yes.
and trying to do the right thing, so to say. So, yeah.
Exactly. You said it beautifully.
Thank you.
We should do a little dance to end off our
Yes.
kind
Do a little
of
dance.
like
Make a little love.
a little love. Get down
Get
tonight.
down
We really need a new song. New song.
Maybe that needs to be our intro.
Oh my gosh. There was all these 80s songs playing yesterday at my mum's birthday. So it's like, come on, I can think of a good one. But you know what's popping into my head right now? But I don't know if it's like a good one. Actually, yeah. You know that song, Celebrate Good Time?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Come
playing
on.
in my head
Yeah.
right now.
Let's celebrate, yeah.
It's all right. Gosh, I love that song. Is it Casey? Casey and what's their name? Do you remember their name?
Mm-hmm.
Sings a song. It's Casey and something.
I can't remember the full name, but I do know Casey. There's Casey and JoJo, I think, but they made All My Life, that song, or I Swear, one of the two.
Oh my gosh, I love that song.
Yeah, same.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love music. I feel like we should definitely do this as a thing, just sort of end, those deep conversations with some music and some dance, because that is healing. Music is so healing.
Yes, absolutely. We can, guys, welcome to our little after party, podcast after party. Let's get with the vibes, end the day or end your evening, whenever time you're listening to this, with a little bit of music and celebrating and dancing. Everybody needs a little dance break, especially as adults.
Look at what
We
I'm-
need to dance more.
Macarena, Macarena.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us, friends. We truly, truly hope that you take care of yourselves after a deep, deep conversation if you listened all the way through. So please be mindful of self, take care of self, prioritize self, and until the next episode.
Toodles. Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.